Today's businesses are on a vigilant watch for threats in an ongoing cyber war. It's time to get real-world solutions to protect and secure your valuable business information anytime, anywhere. Welcome to Cybersecurity America.
Welcome to the show. Today, Matthew Waddell. He's a battle-tested cybersecurity leader with over 25 years of experience in incident response, digital forensics, and ransomware defense. He has led classified investigations for U.S. government agencies, commanded global spanning ransomware outbreaks, and built security operations centers for Fortune 100 enterprises from the ground up. Waddell served as a civilian subject matter expert embedded with special forces in Iraq and Afghanistan, conducting just-in-time digital forensics under combat conditions to extract actionable intelligence on terrorist networks. His ability to lead under pressure has given him a reputation for being the calm, logical voice during chaos. Today, Waddell serves as a trusted advisor to executives navigating the evolving cyber threat landscape. He helps organizations align cybersecurity with business risk, harden their ransomware defenses, and elevate SOC performance to enterprise-grade maturity. Now, whether responding to a breach or fortifying defenses before one strikes, Waddell brings both precision and perspective, translating complex threats into clear strategies. Well, welcome to the show, Matthew. It's really glad to have you. Did I miss anything on your background?
25 years, there's a lot to cover, but that makes me sound pretty impressive when I hear it myself. It's a little hard to believe, but here I am.
That's definitely impressive. So, yeah, won't you tell us some of your stories and some background? That sounds interesting. All of us have, kind of had our hands in many ways in incident response or something in cybersecurity, but doing it in combat conditions, just in time like that has got to be a completely different take. I'd love to hear the story on that.
Sure, that was one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. My wife says I can't do it anymore because she don't want me to get shot or blown up. I have lots of nice little videos I can never share about that and such. But typically, I was working in Iraq first and then Afghanistan for 3 years in the digital forensics. I was embedded with special forces, and we would go out, and they would go, and I would sit in the MRAP since I'm civilian and couldn't hold a weapon because of Geneva Conventions. But I would sit there while they would go out and take out a target, and then they would bring me laptops, pocket litter, and cell phones and such, which I would look through and do what I called speed forensics, where I would look through and find our next target or show them what they were looking at, what they were searching for. And so very just-in-time forensics is a little difficult to do, but I enjoyed it. It was a fun job.
Sounds like it. And now, how fast would those forensics assessment? I mean, by the time you got it from a terrorist, by the time you had intelligence, what are we talking, a few hours, few days?
20 minutes maybe. I would give them as much information as I could as quickly as possible, knowing that I could dive into any device and go at it for hours and hours and hours looking for log files and deleted stuff. But I was searching for active things. They typically didn't have time to delete stuff, although sometimes they were trying to swallow SD cards or whatever when they pulled them out of them. But so it was just typically what was on the device, who they were talking with. Communication between threat parties was a big deal. What phone numbers they called, who was sending text back and forth and such. So.
Now, were they really sophisticated in their usage and their counter forensic capabilities, or they were just kind of simple? Most you always ask, is the guys on the battlefield really practicing good OPSEC or not?
They did have good OPSEC, but they're also one of the poorest countries, or they're the lowest on the happiness index, right next to Pakistan. Their computers were their cell phones. They did not have as many laptops. We weren't talking about sophisticated MacBooks with the latest technology and encryption. We're talking about people walking around with very cheap Chinese knockoff cell phones, which became the complication part of when you're introduced with a antiquated technology, how do you do forensics on it?
Right.
At one point they actually brought me, I forget, it's not VHS, it was the other, it was the the Betamax video cassettes from a Betamax camcorder that had been broken, and I wasn't able to do any forensics because where in Afghanistan are you going to find a Betamax player just so you can view the video files? We ended up having to send that back to the NSA to do analysis on. But the problem with doing forensics out there was that the technology was so low ball. It was the cheapest phones, the cheapest of thumb drives, stuff that would break very easily. And of course, it was all covered in sand and dust and just in a harsh environment, the heat.
Right. And so what do you do today now for different companies? Pretty much the same thing?
Oh, it's way different today. Today, we're looking at ransomware threat actors who have purchased malware with anti-forensics techniques in it. So when we go and we're looking at devices, it's already wiped the Slack files and removed itself, and it's running in memory. And if you can't catch it running actively with a memory dump, you may not be able to get anything, no log files or anything, because of the anti-forensics happening in it. So it is the opposite. It is the utmost of sophistication, as the people that are often creating the ransomware are not the ones implementing it. So you have this large organization of multiple factors putting ransomware into an environment as a business expense, as a business use case. They're purchasing ransomware, malware created by people that have done the research into what forensics techniques would be used, and using that against high value players in order to gain the maximum value from a ransomware attack. So quite the opposite.
It sounds like it. And so in the world of ransomware, I mean, it does seem like, is it slowing down, or companies getting hit even more? I know ransomware is still there. You're still seeing very prevalent, but are companies learning how to restore better on their second, third time getting hit?
That's one of those things I like to say is like, what's worse than one ransomware, two ransomwares? It is when the companies get hit, it'll either be their first time and then they don't do it correctly. They don't have a guide to take them through it. It is definitely one of the top drivers between ransomware and BECs, business email compromises. Those are the main attacks that we're seeing in the world today. It has slowed down a little bit, but I feel that it's just a cyclical curve based upon maybe reporting or maybe the timing in the world today. It's going on almost October here. Everything tends to have a down curve at this point before there's another uptick. So possibly ransomware. I don't know. I don't work for those companies. I don't know why it would be doing that, but it seems to be a little bit slower at the moment. But historically, it will uptick again as we enter the holidays and threat groups are more active.
Yeah. And so what are you finding are the most prevalent threat actors out there? Is it the same MO? Is it a few of them out there that are notable? I mean, some of them you see some takedowns have occurred. The FBI has done some great job taking some organizations down. It just, I don't know. Every time you stamp one out, it seems to be they just change jobs, so to speak, and go somewhere else. Right?
They do. And following the identification of who they are is very difficult. It's like that movie Home Alone, where the wet bandits, he would clog the sink when they would break into the house over the weekend, typically a holiday weekend. They would clog the sink, and those were the things that they were looking for. So these threat groups, we don't exactly know who they are. We identify them and we give them scattered spider and other types of terms for basically meaning this group does these attacks. It uses this type of malware. It does it in this order and such. And we try with attribution, which is a very loose and difficult thing to do. When law enforcement takes down some of their infrastructure or even occasionally catches some of the key players, the rest of them just disband and then join another group. So we see a mishmash of people and groups doing activities, but it's very difficult to do the attribution as to who it is exactly, with everything going over VPN, them doing a very good job of hiding their tracks. Attribution seems to be a lost cause and is one of the least things that you should be as an incident responder should be concerned about. It should be protect yourself and not really worry about who did it, because with global politics, odds of getting them prosecuted are extremely low.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much faith in that. Much faith in that system overseas to be able to bring people to justice. So,
Yeah.
And I think for defenders, one of the things I noticed is for anti-ransomware controls is to ensure you don't have lateral movement, right? And lateral movement can be an issue like having laps in place where you have local administrator password synchronization, right? So the ability to take the local admin password on one desktop and then pass that into a connection off laterally and just move through the entire organization. Why? Because you wanted to standardize a local admin password on the machines. I completely agree, but we saw that a problem 15, 20 years ago. And what we would do is just set the local admin password as a variation of the host name. Like it would be Jack the Ripper and then host name and then add some other character. And so we had something to make them different. Well, Laps kind of does that automatically. So what are some tips like that to really slow down a ransomware actor?
Yeah. I think when you say the lateral movement, in my mind, a better way to say it would be segmentation. And this would be segmentation of both the network, but also segmentation of the administrative privileges. It's said that the threat actors don't break in, they log in with credentials that they've taken from you. And identity is definitely a new perimeter. If you have, as a company, if you've skipped the basics, the threat actors will absolutely take advantage of those. The basics being, segment your network, segment your user accounts, enforce strong passwords. And by strong, that is long and unique. The same password doesn't exist anywhere else, and it's longer than 12 characters. It doesn't have to be all complicated and easy for a computer to guess. It could be all lowercase, 16 characters, small phrase that someone could remember, but as long as it's not used anywhere else, that would be a strong password. I said network segmentation, backups, 3, 2, 1, one of them being offsite, having a grandfather, father, son backup solution that you test. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone into an organization and they've said that they had backups, but when it came time to push them, the backups were ineffective, were going to take too long to be actual, and basically useless. They think they have backups, but they don't test them. So validation of your backups. Yeah.
Or not just test them. They don't even have the infrastructure and the environment to restore it to. Like even if it was a disaster, they wouldn't have enough infrastructure to restore it to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is businesses are pushed to run quickly and forward, and they see security as the brakes. But I ask you, how fast would you let your wife go to the store if she didn't have any brakes on the car? It is a useful and necessary part of running business is to have security in place, controls in place that protect you from disasters, because security is the study of consequences. If you don't do these things, something will find it. The threat actors are just acting like water pushing on a dam. They're going to find the weak spot and then push through that. So the basics are essential. I can sit here and preach the basics for the next 100 years, and it doesn't matter how much technology will change. If you don't segment, protect yourself, create redundancy and backups in your systems, then I'll still have a job.
Yeah, and I think it's the usage that puts them at so much risk. Being a local admin yourself while surfing the internet, not realizing anything you open, any email you open, any website you go to that's malicious, all that executes in the context of you on that machine. And if you have admin rights, then the attacker now has admin rights. There's some of these things that are just no-brainer type things that are causing some of these Trojans, like service accounts. People using service accounts as just their admin account and they're checking email with it. Having service accounts where they can log on to anything instead of very specific machines that they're allowed to do things. So I think there's just this mentality when they're putting computer networks together that really bites people later. They don't think about the NTFS permission sets before everyone's into SharePoint or all these things that should be foundational beforehand. Doesn't seem to be. And then also if you have an EDR solution like CrowdStrike or you have Carbon Black, or you have one of those, just ensuring it's fully deployed on every asset. You know, how many times it's always the asset that doesn't have CrowdStrike or something on it that got hit? There always seems to be some percentage of not fully deployed. I don't know. Is that what you noticed too? There's always some stragglers that seem to get hit.
I like to ask how in depth they deployed their EDR. And I love to hear it when they say 100%, because I know that it cannot possibly be 100%. You can't put it on printers. You can't, you have some devices that are legacy and just won't run it. I think that there's the two hands though to having an EDR, is that you have to have not just the tool used in your environment, but you have to have your team trained on how to use it. I once worked a ransomware case where one of the security users at the company had actually disabled Mimikatz because it was alerting too much. And for those of you that don't know, and I think everyone listening to your program would know, that Mimikatz needs to sound all of the alarm bells. It is an absolute tool that is only used by threat actors. But they had turned it off. So there was the EDR was doing its job, but a human had disabled a very valuable function of it. And so having the training involved.
So you want to explain to those that don't know, what is Mimikatz?
It is a rat. It is it's a post-exploitation tool that takes things out of Windows memory to give to the threat actor, so they can use it to get admin level if they only have basic level. Its sole purpose is to privilege escalation by getting the LSAS access, injecting processes and such. It has a bunch of, it's a large tool. It's like sort of a Swiss Army knife for them, but it's only used by threat actors. It has no legitimate uses in your organization.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think it started off as a legitimate tool, like a lot of them, and then just is picked up by threat actors continuously. So yeah.
Yeah, they use red team tools, but which is why your red team should have designated systems used for that, so that you can block those on the EDR, so that you don't automatically alert on things that are not being alerted or shouldn't be alerted on. When your red team is doing pen testing, tell your EDR which systems will be doing those, so that you don't stress out your SOC.
Yeah, and cause a lot of different hate and discontent.
Or test your SOC with it. But yeah, you should at least have those systems. If you have a laptop with Mimikatz on it, for whatever reason, typically red team, you should at least have it noted in the EDR, so that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also see where PowerShell seems to be problematic, right? Where they have PowerShell set up where your no real logging is set up. Any commands are run in the PowerShell log, so it doesn't log it. You also have it where it's logging base 64 instead of the actual commands, so you're obfuscating the logs that may end up in a SIM system coming from a server into a SIM. But what are you seeing from a PowerShell perspective? It seems to be what everyone's using for exploitation and so forth.
That's difficult, because you'll find a lot of admins that are using PowerShell, so you have to talk with them to figure out what they've been using it for, so that you can differentiate between the threat actor and the legitimate use. You also have to turn on the PowerShell logging, so that it does log. Otherwise, it just will be used in the environment, but it won't log its operations. So.
Right. And I think that's where people think it does by default, and a lot of power. Once you got PowerShell, it's a lot you can do behind the scenes. You don't need to drop binaries on systems when you can just use PowerShell across them. So it's a very powerful tool set. Yeah,
the threat actors that are living off the land by using admin tools are the most difficult to patch in the first place, because the EDR won't alert if PowerShell is typically used in your environment and you've told your EDR to ignore all of that. If the threat actor is using it to data exfil or move laterally or install malware sideways, it won't alert on it because you've turned it off. So Living off the land techniques for advanced threat actors is very difficult to catch.
Yeah, and for y'all on the show that don't know what living off the land is, it's using the tools that are already native on that system and abusing them to use it, nefariously, obviously. But you're not installing new tools. You're not. So the footprint is much smaller. It's really hard to catch those type of people. So when you hear the term living off the land, that's what it means. So. Yeah, and what are some of the newest tools you're seeing from an IR perspective that, I started using this tool instead of that? When I remember when I went through SANS training, there was just two different worlds. One was the open source world. Here's the tool sets you do for this in the open source world. And then, by the way, this is how you do it in the commercial world. There's different tool sets. But what's kind of your go-to things that you think are powerful from an IR perspective?
Yeah. Going back to the SANS training, because I've also done that. I'm a big fan of it. What they're teaching you by using the open source is what is happening on the back end. And the difference between the open source tools and the closed source for profit tools is simply the support that you get from using the tool. If you're using a open source Velociraptor or OpenEDR, there is no support. You have to use your web search and ChatGPT to figure out why it's breaking or what you're trying to do. Versus if you're using a larger tool like CrowdStrike or SentinelOne, you have a support system and you're paying for it and you can ask them to help you or show you what to do. And that's typically the main difference between it. I'm seeing a lot of convergence between EDR moving over to XDR and cloud native telemetry. Endpoints are beginning to bundle things for richer telemetry, which is very useful, but it can be a bit of a data overload from an incident responder perspective. Memory and live forensics tooling is maturing a lot, and I'm starting to see people try and use AI quite a bit, but I edge caution on that because a lot of the AI will feed information back to the source and can be used against you if you're using ChatGPT and you're feeding all the logs into that, you are feeding the ChatGPT with that, and someone else could pull that from someone completely outside of the organization could pull keys or something useful out of that by breaking ChatGPT. A lot of the AIs or the LLMs are useful, but there's a certain amount of caution we are still in we're still in the dial-up phase of this. It's very, very primitive, and they will lie to you with confidence. They may tell you something and lead you down a path because it thinks that's what you want to know, and you will start with the wrong hypothesis based upon something that it told you. So people need to be very careful with that.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I was doing some recon on this OSINT work on this one account, and I was using a ChatGPT. I was just asked it, what do you know about this target, about this company? And it knew exactly what their security controls were, what it was using, what firewall, everything. And when I looked at the model sources, it was right off the company's website. It was right off that university's website. So the university itself gave off so much information that the tool was able to say, yeah, it's a Palo Alto version this, because it could see on the help documents, it says that's its version. And this is, so I see where they just kind of really shoot themselves in the foot at probably being a little too helpful, giving away a little too much information. But now that AI model can just strip all that information out and then give you a what's running over their list,
Yeah, it was just poor OPSEC on their behalf. I see a lot of educational models do not have the right thinking. They approach it with a openness first, which from a business standpoint for a learning education facility is useful, but from an OPSEC of like, how do you protect yourself? It's don't go tell them everything that you're doing, because with your example you just gave, you could just look up what CVEs exist against this firewall version and such, and then you could apply those if you needed to. So
yeah, that seems to be be careful what information you put in there, especially if you were doing a risk assessment or a cyber risk assessment, you're using ChatGPT or one of the other models, and then all of a sudden that information's out there, so you can see where it's potential leak. So I've been using a lot of tools lately in AI, just building my company here and so forth. I noticed like Claude or Anthropic's Claude model does some great things. It's more of a strategic advisor. Like if I asked it, I'm going to put together a penetration testing program. What should I charge? Who else is charging what? What's the main structure of it? It'll create that. It'll even do like chain of thought. It'll do it in two different mindsets and then give you both strategies. Or like ChatGPT, you're giving it text and it's just responding back with a better written version of what you gave it.
Yeah.
So I see where it's almost the prompt engineering. That's how you asked, what is the task? What's the references? What do you want to accomplish? What you are analysis? It does seem like we're all going to have to become prompt engineers here in the future. All of all the tools that we're using eventually are going to be prompt based. I mean, is that kind of what you're seeing? It's almost natural language to ask versus what are the command syntaxes for things anymore? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I was in college way back in the 90s, and my thesis was actually on neural networks and have followed AI and the concept around AI for a long time. I think that as words change, we generally say AI, but a LLM or large language model is a structure of, it is a programming language around words. It takes words and it treats them subject, noun, adjective, verb, and treats that like a programming model. They're very useful for asking questions and getting deep dive stuff, but I consider every time that I use it, and I do have ChatGPT up here in case I wanted to reference things, that it will lie to me about 10% of the time. So imagine if we were talking and I figured you would tell me the truth 90% of the time, and then one of those times completely bold-faced lie with blank expression and I couldn't tell. So you have to know a lot about what you're asking it in order to be able to fret out what it's doing. And I've done the same by creating incident response playbooks and using this to help me make my words better and a little more elegant, and have found bold-faced lies in it that from a subject matter expert around incident response know that it is trying to tell me something that I want to hear in its creation of words, but it doesn't know. It doesn't have a conscience. Sand can't think. It doesn't understand this. It's like when you're texting someone and you have the prompting of what the next words are. It's a big version of that on steroids, but it doesn't understand. So be careful when you create those things. It will lead you down the wrong path. And if you continue down that path, it will continue to lead you down that path.
I noticed that. I did ChatGPT. This was about a month ago. I said, here's this job that I'm 95% qualified for. Take my resume, just tweak it for that one, and give me a different version. And what I found out, it saw some areas on that job description that I didn't cover. Instead of not writing towards it, it falsified my resume, put projects I was on in IAM, for instance, designed and architected this massive IAM deployment for this bank. I was like, what? I never did that. Where'd that come from? It fabricated it. And that was a little scary. So it wrote my resume, and each of the jobs I worked at added another area that I was missing because it wasn't in the job description. So it falsified the resume. So it's like,
thought that was what you wanted. So
that's what it thought what I wanted.
It has no conscience. It doesn't even have, it's not intelligent by any means. It is it's a sifter, like what you use for flour for words to create something that we give meaning towards, but it isn't necessarily true. So
yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I can tell you the one way I did my website, darkstack7.com, right? And at the first version of it, I used Wix, which was you pulled images over, you dealt with HTML, you'd see one version's for mobile, one's for iPad, and so forth. Basically, really great platform to create some basic web applications. However, it's like driving a Tesla. You have the ability to turn that wheel, hit something. You have very precision. You can write whatever you want on it, include errors and problems. Now, I used an IA platform called Lovable, and Lovable was this large language model that builds websites on top of it. So it has all kind of templates. And Lovable, essentially, you would say, I want to build a website that does this. It creates a link to capture this. And this is some of my general text of my services. and it goes and creatively builds that out. And if you need to modify something, I need that box to be red. You hit edit, you click on it, and you have to prompt, tell it, turn this box red. And then it ends up turning the box red. So it's almost like a Tesla on autopilot. I can prompt it and tell it what to do, but I lack the precision to actually drag something over or change a color or add some JavaScript or whatever it is. You now have to communicate, but that it's got its pros and cons. So to send emails out, you have to be able to use Supabase to be able to send out these emails. Well, you tell it, hey, create the email connection and the API. You'll say, go here and grab this key. Used to be you needed a developer to set up APIs and get all that working. Now these models can actually do it themselves. You can talk to them and say, I want to integrate with here, and it'll ask you to log on and grab an API key, and you hand it to it, and it sets it all up and got it up and running. So that website got built. It has forms in order to be able to collect information and send it, and all of it was done through prompting. Nothing was hard coded or anything. So, and it saved several $1,000s doing that. Now, you lose some precision on some artistic, you want to grab this and do this, but the ability to create it and move on is just phenomenal. I tell it, hey, here's a presentation I'm going to upload. I want you to create a form that captures people's name and their email address, and then email them the form and let them download it. And that's all I wrote in a prompt in Lovable, and it created that entire form, allowed people to put it in and move forward. So it seems that the real business layer, where when I got my degree in computer information systems from Tulane, it was Java and C and C++, and you had to take this business constructs and write code to accomplish those business constructs, right? But now it's like that developer middle is gone. You can now use natural processing language, natural language processing, and have a business person speak into what the application should do. And you really don't need a developer sitting in the middle. So in many ways, it's a little scary, but it definitely seems to be the future.
I think that you should probably have a professional look over the configurations to make sure that it didn't introduce vulnerabilities, thinking that might be something you could use, and so that there still has to be some knowledge of it. I like your Tesla example. You wouldn't want to put someone that had no idea how to drive behind a Tesla, because they might grab the wheel and turn and merge into traffic or hit the brake or the gas. They still have controls, even though the automobile, the computer on wheels, is doing most of the work. They still have the ability to mess something up. So,
yeah.
And it's the same with LLMs. People are using these for medical diagnosis, and it will tell you what it thinks. But I had a little cough and I went into WebMD and it said I had cancer. So, it's sort of you need to have some basic understanding, or at least have a professional double check the work at the end and such. Where I see, taking this back towards incident response, where I see the use of it is, I've worked in SOCs for a long time. My first professional job was at NASA in their wide area network SOC. And going through the logs and the weirdness of cybersecurity, in that we put the juniors in the foremost position looking at logs, and they have no idea what they're looking at. They do not know that Mimikatz is a tool used for evil. And they will sit there and they will say, that's annoying me, and they will turn it off. Having the entry-level SOC personnel, you be able to put logs into an isolated LLM and ask it questions about it and get human responses without having to bother a senior incident response person to ask about every single thing, would be a massive amount of training and useful for SOC personnel to be able to eliminate the false positives and lower the amount of noise that they're suffering from. I think that there's a lot of use there. And even if it gets things wrong, there's a lot of fact checking that can be done, and a lot of use that would be an enhancement to an organization. As a single SOC personnel being used to watch all traffic, I think that it would be problematic, and that they can be abused. Threat actors can abuse and create prompts inside of things that kick off the LLM to do things for the threat actor if it is placed into the wrong location. They could, just off the top of my head, they could send packets and web pages to the EDR with prompts embedded into it that would tell it to kick out and give API keys or credentials or something, mail them back to the threat actor or post them onto a website for the threat actor to pull. So they need to be very carefully put together by someone who understands from a senior level what they're doing so that junior level can use them and kind of create guardrails, sort of like having a Tesla on a track so that they could turn it, but they wouldn't hit anything. They would just bounce off the bumpers and be a little more training based.
Yeah, I think I had Anthropic's kill chain for AI, and it talked about data poisoning. Really is about finding the knowledge sources on where it's pulling from, and then poisoning those, and then using that for persistence and then modification and so forth. One of the presentations I did at ISC Squared last week was about some of the common logical fallacies that we have, like ad hominem attacks, and are relating it to an AI system. So, for instance, an ad hominem attack against a security analyst would be, that can't be real, true positive. That guy's like been here for only a month or so. So, it's probably a false positive. There's immediate dismissal based on who that person is rather than what the alert is. And so you can imagine some of these psychological issues that we deal with are straw man, red herring, all that is in AI models because we're having to recreate it. We're recreating the human psyche inside these models, and they will exhibit some of these issues. So imagine if you're asking a model, what is the most preferred method here, and then somehow it's completely biased in one way, and you don't realize that it's biased because maybe the product here is from the company that owns it, and it decides, hey, that's a better thing to introduce it. So I think until AI models have that chain of thought where you can see how we got to that decision, it just seems to be hit and miss. Like my example with the web page and some of these models where it automatically creates a web page, I would use the same exact prompt and get two different results. So I'd use exact prompt and it would generate the application. It would use some creativity and then come up with a template it thought was best. But I couldn't ever get it to do the exact same website using if I did it again using the exact same prompt, I don't get the same answer.
Well, that's the randomizer built into the LLM, and it's done that way on purpose so that it will create variety, so that if you ask it a question and it gives one answer, and I ask it the same question on the other side of the world and it won't give the same answer, that randomizer creates the variety that we're looking for in an LLM. Otherwise, we would just go to Wikipedia for everything, same answer, all the questions and such. It's useful though for feeding it back in, because if you did not have that randomizer in there, and it's deep down in the LLM, if you didn't have that in there, your flow of consciousness with it would always reach the same conclusion. The randomizer helps it bounce around a little bit so that you can get a variety of thought out of it.
Interesting. I didn't know it was doing that. I just know I couldn't reproduce the exact same thing. My thinking is if I have this prompt and I want to save it off and I want to use it again here and I want to create the exact same output, it's different. Every time the model processes a prompt, you can have potentially different outcome. So,
well, it's attempting to humanize it as well. If I ask you to tell me about yourself and you have 30 seconds, and then someone else down the street asks you, your answer will be fundamentally the same, but because of the interface, it will be a little bit different based upon where you are now, who I am, how the question was phrased, exactly, facial expressions, a bunch of things that don't apply to the LLM, but that variety of an answer is essentially what they're trying to build into the LLM. So
yeah, it's getting scary. I can tell you one of them had, I saw this was a while back, it applied for a job, and then all of a sudden there's an agent sending a text message. There's an AI agent sending a text message saying, I want to screen you before this interview. And I knew that stuff was going to happen. All of a sudden you're going to be interviewing with an AI agent that you have to get past before you ever get to a human.
I think it's best to push back on those. They want me to not use AI to generate my answers for them, but they can use AI, that seems a little two-sided. I will push back. If HR, doesn't matter who the company is. If I wanted heart and soul, have them tattooed on me and wanted to work for them, if they try and introduce me to an AI HR representative, I think they're just being lazy. The ultimate goal of a company is to hire a smart person to do things. And all of our experience and skills and certifications and everything that we bring to the table is simply saying, I'm an intelligent person. I can help you solve whatever problem comes about in my area of expertise. And if they start throwing AIs and LLMs in that mix, they're taking the humanity out. And I don't want to be a cog in a machine. So
well said. Well, Matthew, it was great having you on the show here. I think we covered a lot of ground here. Any other closing bits that you want to share with the audience here? Anywhere we can find you? Tell us from your website and how can we follow you and so forth.
Sure. Tactically Secure is my personal site. I am only on LinkedIn and YouTube under that, under Matthew Waddell, and I'm working on a book, Survive Ransomware. I am mostly finished with it, and if you sign up on surviveransomware.com, I can give free goodies as I develop this. The point of the book is to create something so that small, medium businesses have a playbook that they can follow to handle and manage ransomware, because without a professional security team, they're completely lost and at the whim of whatever company goes to help them. So trying to create a manual for the good of humanity, whether I make money off it or not, I'm just taking what I know and what I've researched and putting it out there. So
it sounds great. I'm going to go sign up for that. When's the release? You said soon?
By the end of the year.
By the end of the year. I'm looking forward to it.
I have a chapter and a half left to write, but they're actively being written right now. So.
Well, that's good. That's something I always want to do, is write a book. So you're definitely beating me to the punch, man. Congratulations.
We can all do it. You can do it. We're all Venn diagrams of knowledge. We all have our experience that we bring to the table, and we all complement each other. There's no competition here. It's just everyone trying to get along and do good by the world. So thanks for having me, Josh. This was great. I love chatting with you, as always.
All right, Matthew. You have a good one. Tactically Secure. And everybody else, stay secure.